Hey guys, and welcome to my tips and tricks video for Ulduar from an Affliction Warlock point of view. I must apologize beforehand, as my voice may be bad and you may hear a cough or two, as I'm still suffering from the side effects of getting sick over Christmas. I must clarify before we begin that just because this video is made from an Affliction Warlock point of view, it doesn't mean that you cannot use the information given in this video. If you've been following my Twitch channel, you know I've been promising you this video before Ulduar launches, and it's finally here. I will go over all the bosses, even the optional ones without a hard mode. Some bosses may have very few things you can optimize, while certain bosses have more. If you're looking for a specific boss, I will leave timestamps in the video for you. Hope you enjoy it, and let's get to it. So, the first boss we have is Flame Leviathan. Now, while this is a vehicle fight and we don't have any rotational stuff we can optimize, I thought I would leave this in anyway, as a lot of people have been watching my PTR point of view and thought we had a really good Flame Leviathan. So I thought I would explain it really quick what it is we do to make it so good. So what we do is that we prioritize the Affliction Warlocks and a Boomy to be launched onto Flame Leviathan to cause the shutdown. The reason for the Affliction Warlock and the Boomy is that you have to kill 4 turrets on Flame Leviathan and they are fairly spread out, so classes with good AoE and multi-dots are perfect for it. So what we do to cause the most shutdowns possible is that in 2 demolishers we are using 3 people per demolisher. We have the 2 designated drivers, and then in Demo 1 we will have the passengers be Affliction Lock, Demo 2 Affliction Lock, Boomy. So before the boss even starts, we preload in each demolisher, and then as soon as the boss fight starts, we shoot them up so we can cause the first shutdown as soon as possible. When the first shutdown appears, we have the 2 bikes picking us up as we fall off the demo. They pick us up and then they drive to our designated demolisher, and we sit there and wait in the chopper for like 10 seconds until Flame Leviathan is moving again. As soon as he is moving, the people who are currently the passengers in the 2 demos will load in and get shut up to start the next shutdown. When they do that, we jump into the demo, and from there it's basically just a rinse and repeat. Other than that, there's really not that much to say about Flame Leviathan from a Warlock perspective. You will most likely be the guy who's put onto the Flame Leviathan because you're the best at doing it. So, our next 2 bosses are the 2 first optional bosses of Ulduar, Ignis and Razorscale. I will do these 2 together, as there really isn't that much to cover on both of them. My biggest tip for Ignis as a spellcaster in general is that you of course stop casting during flame jets on Ignis. Unless you have a Holy Paladin rotation set up for using Aura Master with Conk Aura for that flame jet. If they do that, you can keep casting and you will not occur the 8-second interrupt on your spell. On Razorscale, I would recommend you to stop attacking the ads at a certain point, so you have all your ICDs ready for when Razorscale is brought down for the first time. When he lands for the first time, blow all your cooldowns so you can do it in one phase only. As you get more gear though, you might not need to blow all your cooldowns instantly and you can wait with them for execute. But at the beginning, I would blow them all as soon as he lands. That is about all the tips and tricks I have for Ignis and Razorscale. As I said earlier, they are fairly simple bosses where you cannot min-max that much. The next boss we encounter is XT. Now XT is the first boss of Ulduar where you will really see the value of having your teleport. You put down your portal where you stack the raid, and then whenever you get the gravity bomb or light bomb and move out with them, you can instantly teleport back to where you started. Now, I like to also maximize your rocket boots on this fight. So for example, when you get a gravity bomb, instead of instantly moving out, you push it to the limit, and then you use rocket boots with like 2 or 3 seconds left on the explosion. You rocket boot out, put it, and instantly teleport back to the raid, giving you more uptime on the boss. Now, when it comes to multi-dotting on XT, it really depends on how your raid in particular is playing. Like, if you are in a raid where you really focus heavily on the sparks, everyone switches target to the sparks, then multi-dotting them doesn't really do anything. You will maybe get like 4 or 5 seconds of dots on them before the spark will die. It's really wasteful. But on the other hand, if you are playing in a raid where you just want to cleave them down slowly, putting up a UA and corruption on the sparks, if you can get a good duration on it, is very powerful while you still maintain full uptime on XT. So it really depends on your raid how you will maximize your damage on XT. Next boss I'm covering is Iron Council, specifically Iron Council hard mode in this case. Now, Iron Council hard mode is the first boss where there is a lot of optimization to do. So bear with me on this one, okay? Now, fully dotting all 3 and like spamming Seed of Corruption and stuff like that is not really what you want to do, as they heal to full HP every time you kill one of them. Keep that in mind. And of course, any damage you have done to a boss before it heals to full HP for the last time does not count on the logs. So don't even pad, boys. Now, what I like to do on pull on Iron Council is, as we're running in and getting into position stacking under the little guy, I like, if I have 3 globals running in, I will throw a corruption on the middle guy and Steelbreaker if I have 3 globals. Why would you do that? To fish for Nightfall procs or to fish for Eradication procs. On this boss, the middle guy will spawn runes on the ground that increases your damage done by 50%. Now I know what you're thinking, and yes, you can roll your corruption with these runes. But more importantly, if your off tank is positioning the bosses well, because the runes spawn under the bosses, if the off tank positions the boss well, as you can see right now on my screen, I have 2 rune buffs on me. Now why is that important? When you have the double rune, what I do is I have my Steelbreaker as my focus target. I will put a corruption on him. Now we have a double rune corruption on Steelbreaker. And we will keep rolling that by refreshing it with like focus target rank 1 shadow balls or drain life, and we will keep that double rune corruption all the way to the last phase. Now you might be wondering, isn't that just padding, and didn't you say you shouldn't pad at the beginning? Well, when you do this boss hard mode, 99% of the time you are stopping damage anyway in phase 2, waiting for the perfect runes. So the only phase that really matters when it comes to damage is the last phase, where you want to burn down Steelbreaker as fast as possible. And you having a super juiced up corruption for that burn phase will really help your raid kill this boss. So as you might know, in this fight your main tank is doomed to die unless you have ridiculous DPS. So if your raid can like coordinate and tell you when exactly that tank is gonna die, casting Drain Soul right before he dies, if the boss is in execute range of course, casting Drain Soul right before he dies allows you to rip that Drain Soul. Even if the boss heals, you're still doing your full execute damage. That is incredibly powerful. So instead of you having to stand there and cast Shadow Bolt, your tank was nice to say, hey, I am dying in 2 seconds, you refreshed your haunt, and now you're ripping a fat Drain Soul. Even though the boss might be 40% HP now, you're doing that fat damage. On this fight, you will also utilize your teleport once again, just like on XT. When you are stacking on a rune, and you might get a call that Death Rune is now getting off cooldown and it can pop any second, you can put down your teleport on the rune and then spread out. As soon as the Death Rune is out, you can instantly teleport back onto the rune and keep doing your damage. Now, what I also like to do, like as I said before, phase 3 is the only phase where damage really matters. So if you have your raid leader say, hey, stop damage on the middle guy, we need to wait for a rune to spawn. What I like to do then is I completely switch off the middle guy and I only focus my dots on Steelbreaker. But take note, isn't the boss just gonna heal? Why would you fully dot Steelbreaker and start damaging him? Well, when the call is made that the power rune is spawned and you want to kill the middle guy, you already have all your dots up, you have Haunt up, you have triple Shadow Embrace up on Steelbreaker, while the melees kill the middle guy in like 1 or 2 seconds. Now, when the middle guy dies, you have everything up already and you are doing your full damage rotation instantly in phase 3. Again, helping you reach that burst you need to kill him before you just get overwhelmed. Last thing I will say about Steelbreaker is if you have really good damage, especially in like the first week, you can probably do your first Drain Soul at 25% while you still have the power rune. As you can see in this clip, I just missed the power rune by a second before it disappeared and the boss was in execute phase. Now remember, if you are using Drain Soul with that buff up, your entire Drain Soul duration gets that 50% damage. That is incredible. Keep that in mind. Now, our next boss is Kologarn. Kologarn only has a normal mode and he's not that difficult of a boss, but we still want to min-max him, of course. So what I like to do is before you pull the boss, you can put down your portal, for example, on the left side of the entrance, and then you move over to the right side. What this does is that if you get focused by the beam on the boss, you can instantly just teleport and you will be far away from the beam and you can just rip your damage like nothing ever happened. If it gets close, you have your rocket boots ready anyway. Not that big of a deal. Now, this is the first boss where we really get a situation where we can multi-dot. And I would like to introduce to you the way that I am going to be playing Ulduar and how I am going to be multi-dotting on these bosses. Now, I'm talking multi-dotting mostly on Kologarn, Freya and Mimiron. Before I get into it, I must say, the way that I will show you now of how I will do it is not the way to do it. It is not the best way to do it. This is just how I prefer to do it and what feels good to me. There are many different ways you can do this and there's no right or wrong. As long as it's good for you, you should do it. I have in the past been playing purely off nameplates, but having to switch target and target these nameplates just feels very clunky sometimes. And I'm missing out on the cast, missing out on globals because I can't hit these nameplates sometimes. And it's way easier to just have a targeting macro. So what I will be doing for the multi-dotting is I will have my main target set as my focus target. For example, on Kologarn, my main target will be the body of Kologarn himself. And then I will have a targeting macro for the left arm and a targeting macro for the right arm. This targeting macro I will use will be, for example, the first keybind. It will be to target the right arm on Kologarn, and then on Freya it will target the Storm Lasher, and then on Mimiron it will, for example, target the bottom part of Mimiron. One macro to target all 3 different things. Now the second macro would be, for example, the left arm on Kologarn, it will be the Ancient Water Spirit on Freya, and it will be the middle part on Mimiron. If you are interested in this macro, I will of course give it to you. I will leave it in the description down below. And keep in mind, if you see any weak auras or add-ons on my screen that you like and you would like to have in your UI as well, feel free to join my Discord to get it. The invite link is in the description as well. Now, the next boss is Auriaya. Auriaya doesn't really have that much for us to cover. What I like to do is that when the pull is made and she's in position, I'm just spamming my seed, I'm using my sapper, I'm just burning down the adds to kill them as fast as possible. When that is done, and the big cat is spawned from her, you can multi-dot the big cat while still maintaining your full rotation on Auriaya. And then of course you just pray to the RNG gods that you do not get interrupted by the cat. Maybe your paladins will give you a little blessing of protection. Now our next boss will be Hodir. Hodir is not so much about the individual tips and tricks you can do, but more of a team-oriented group effort on how to do the boss properly. Now Techno, what do you mean by team effort? I just want to pump. Well, what I mean, for example, is that I like, when I do Hodir, is that we have a quote-unquote super caster group of, and that is 6 people, 6 casters who are absolute pumpers. Why 6, you might ask? Well, Storm Cloud on Hodir, which increases your critical strike damage done by over 100%, can only be given out to 6 people before the guy giving them out is no longer giving them out. So if you form a super camp of like 6 really good ranged caster DPS, you make sure that all 6 of these get the Storm Cloud buff and they can absolutely pump. If you instead had like 10 people, for example, maybe the Storm Cloud would go to people who don't do that much DPS and it's a waste. What I also like to do, if you have your quote-unquote again super group, is that you don't spread out between spotlights. You move as a unit. For example, if you have 2 or 3 spotlights near you, you all stand together in the first one, and then you move as a group to the second one when the falling ice appears, to the third one and back, like moving in a triangle, for example. The reason for this is that if you, for example, have people standing on all 3 spotlights, all 3 spotlights will be covered by ice all the time, and sometimes you will find yourself not having a spotlight to stand in. During execute on Hodir as an Affliction Warlock, if you have the Storm Cloud buff, only if you have the Storm Cloud buff, you will still be spamming Shadow Bolt during execute. You will not be drain souling. The mathematics have been done on it, and Shadow Bolt with Storm Cloud is more DPS than you ripping your drain soul. Now the last thing I want to say about Hodir is the only really thing you can do as an individual player, and that is still to pre-pop the Wild Magic and get a Tricks on pull, and then get a Shadow Bolt and a Corruption on Hodir before those buffs are gone. The reason that is so powerful to do that still on pull on Hodir is that, for example, the Storm Cloud buff works dynamically. The Synced debuff on Hodir is dynamic, so you don't need to apply a new Corruption until 35% if you get a new Tricks at 35%. So that is still very powerful to do. The next boss on the menu is Thorim. Now Thorim, there isn't really that much you can do from an Affliction Warlock point of view. The only thing I would say is that your best friend is once again the teleport. Now you probably have a designated position for you to stand in, so you don't spread the chain lightning. So when you are in your position, you put down your portal, and then whenever you have to move from lightning charge, you move out, of course, and as soon as the lightning charge has happened, you teleport back into position and you just keep on doing damage. There really isn't that much else to say about Thorim, in my opinion, from Affliction Warlock point of view. The next boss on the menu will be Freya. Now, just like on Thorim, your best friend is once again your teleport. How I like to do it on Freya is that on the opposite side of the river of where you're tanking the boss, I will put down my portal. And then whenever you have the phase with the detonating lashers, when they get really low, you can get greedy and keep seeding for a long time, and then portal to the other side of the river to be safe just before they start exploding, to optimize your seed damage. On Freya, I like to put a Corruption on Freya when there is downtime between waves, fishing for Nightfall procs, fishing for Eradication procs, and just a little bit of self-heal if there is some raid damage going out. Now I don't recommend doing this if it means proccing your good ICDs before a wave will spawn. Like I'm talking, maybe you have a Dying Curse ready to be procced, maybe your Tailoring Cloak is ready to be procced, then I wouldn't be putting up the Corruption and proccing these before the waves even spawn. That's not good. Now, on Freya, when you are fighting the Ancient Conservator, he will be putting down mushrooms throughout where you can stand under to not get silenced, but more importantly, these mushrooms give you a 25% damage buff, and yes, this 25% damage buff works with rolling your corruption. So these mushrooms will almost always be active for the wave coming after the big guy, and you can use these mushrooms for 25% more damage on the next wave. Now, it might not be always good on detonating lashers, but if you are encountering the triple wave with the triple adds, it is very powerful to roll your corruption on all 3 adds and then keep refreshing it with shadow bolts. Now, as I've mentioned on Kologarn, and if you missed it, I recommend going back to Kologarn, where I explain in depth how I'm going to be multi-targeting in Ulduar. On this boss, on Freya, when we have the triple add spawn, I will put the Snap Lasher as my focus target because that is the main target I gotta focus, and then I will have targeting macros for the other 2 adds. Our next boss on the menu will be the last keeper, Mimiron. And I will start out again. Your portal is once again your best friends for optimizing uptime on the boss. The portal is especially powerful in phase 2 and phase 4, where you can use the portal to instantly get to safety when the spinny boy wants to do his whirl of death and you gotta avoid it. Rocket Boots is also your best friend on this boss. You can, on purpose, get yourself into very sticky situations by like being a team player and kiting fire into really bad positions, and then you can use your rocket boots across the room to get instantly to safety. It's very, very powerful to be engineering on this boss. I cannot stress that hard enough. Now, as I was doing on Kologarn and Freya, I will once again be using my targeting macro. If you missed what the targeting macro was all about, I explained everything about it on Kologarn. So just go back to that if you want to learn everything I said about it. And again, I must clarify, it is not the best way to multi-dot probably. It all depends on what you feel comfortable as a player. There are many ways you can multi-dot and make it easier for yourself. So just try different ways and find the one that works the best for you. So what I will do to maximize damage on Mimiron is mostly gonna come from the last phase, phase 4, where all 3 phases are like combined into one. So what I will do is I will put the head on focus, as that will be my main target as a caster that I gotta focus on. Now on the head, I will do almost a full single target rotation. I'm talking keeping up Shadow Embrace, keeping up Haunt, all 3 dots. All this will be kept up. And then on the middle part, I will put a corruption, and then on the bottom part, I will be spamming my seed into the bottom part, while maintaining all dots on the head. This is how I like to maximize Mimiron, and as you can see in the clip, you will do ridiculous amount of damage spamming seeds into this boss. You will dominate the meter. Now, the last thing I want to say about Mimiron is like a general tip more than anything. It's like, don't panic. It may seem like a lot is going on in phase 4, and once you've done the boss a few times, you will realize, well, the fire is moving incredibly slow, the boss is moving around slow. It's really not that bad. So just stay calm, do your rotation, look around the room, and you will be completely fine. There's no reason to panic at all. But I guess this will come once you've done the boss once or twice. Don't worry about it. Now the next boss will be General Vezax, and will be specifically talking about the hard mode version here. And of course we gotta do the hard mode version, because that's where Flare of the Heavens will drop, our beautiful trinket that we of course have priority on over the filthy fire mages, boys. Don't forget that. The general rule on General Vezax is that you do not cast outside the shadow zone. You will deal less damage and you will waste a lot of mana doing it. Phase 1 on Vezax is not a DPS race. 9 times out of 10 you have to stop damage anyway, or you would simply kill Vezax before the Animus is spawned. Just don't do it, guys. My biggest tip to maximize the Shadow Crash zone is to not stand in the middle of the Shadow Crash, but rather on the edges of it. Now you might wonder, does that matter? Well, since this is a mana intensive fight, you cannot regain mana unless you use a Dark Rune or a Fel mana potion. So you want to maximize your mana usage. So like for example, if you have a corruption on the boss and then you finish a cast, a Shadow Crash is coming to you. You finish your Shadow Bolt and you're standing on the edge. Then you move out while the Shadow Bolt's in the air. Then the Shadow Bolt will land when you don't have the haste buff from the Shadow Crash, making your corruption again be like 12-13 second duration, whatever your haste is, and it will not drop off as you're moving away from the crash. On the other hand, if you were in the crash and then your corruption would most likely be like 4 seconds and it would fall off and you need to reapply it and waste more mana. As a general rule, when I was doing Vezax hard mode with my guild on the PTR, my golden mana percent was 40%. I did not want to go below 40% until the Animus spawned. I needed 40% mana. Now this might differ from your guild, differ when you get more gear. This is something you can play around in your own raids, like figure out, okay, what is the magic number of mana I need for when the Animus spawns? Because this Animus has to die as soon as possible, so you wanna have a lot of mana for it. And again, just like almost every other boss in the raid, your portal is once again king. The reason that your portal is king on General Vezax is that he will do a spell called Mark of the Faceless, where you gotta get away from your teammates as fast as possible or you will be healing the boss. So what you do is that you have a portal that you can instantly teleport to if you get this mark. But there's an important thing to remember about General Vezax. If you pre-place a portal before combat, it will disappear when combat starts. So what you need to do is stand in the back, and then as soon as the boss fight starts, you put down your portal and then you go into your group. My last tip for General Vezax is that even though you cannot generate mana, you still want to be life tapping. Maybe you still have 4 set tier 7, you have the life tap glyph, so you want to be life tapping. But of course you don't want to be ripping max rank life taps, losing a lot of HP, no reason for that. So what you do instead, you just have a rank 1 life tap that you press. Our next boy on the menu will be Yogg-Saron. In my opinion, there isn't really that many factors that you can fully min-max as an Affliction Warlock on Yogg-Saron, other than phase 3. Like, phase 1 is very simple, phase 2 you are multi-dotting, of course, you're focusing the big tentacles, you're doing your multi-dotting stuff, that's obvious. And that's about it for phase 1 and 2, there isn't really that much you can do. If you feel like I missed something, please let me know in the comments down below. Now for phase 3. The biggest thing in my opinion you can do to min-max is, number 1, get a weak aura that shows the cooldown on Lunatic Gaze and shows a cast bar on your screen when he's casting it, so you can always turn away in time. Now, if you made it to the last phase and you have an incredibly high amount of sanity, like you can make it into phase 3 and still have like 60 or more sanity, then it is okay to tank some of the Lunatic Gaze to lose sanity. It is completely fine. Of course you don't want to just tank from 60 to 10 sanity in like a couple of Lunatic Gaze, right? You don't want to do that. You want to be safe still. And then of course, since you're an Affliction Warlock, when you get the boss to 25%, which happens kind of fast, you're now in Drain Soul territory. So if you have a weak aura showing you when Lunatic Gaze can happen, you can get up your dots, get up your haunt, start the Drain Soul and turn your back to Yogg-Saron, losing no sanity. That is about all you can really do as an Affliction Warlock. You are the kings of phase 3 because you can do your execute while looking away. But again, I don't really see much else you can do on Yogg-Saron. But again, please let me know if you feel like I really missed something. The last boss I will be covering in this video will be, of course, Algalon. Now, How you do Algalon and how you can min-max Algalon is gonna depend a lot on how your raid or guild does the boss. Now, maybe you are in a raid where the tactic is you help multi-dotting the stars around the room, or maybe you're in a raid where you are not allowed to touch them because it messes with the timers, they explode, etc. So I cannot sit here, for example, and tell you to throw up corruptions on all the stars if it messes with your raid and the timers you want to kill the stars in. I cannot do that. You can do that, of course, if your raid says, yeah, that's fine, that's good, we want that, do it. Pre-potting on Algalon is something you can still do, unless if it's the first pull on Algalon you do, he has a longer RP and you will be in combat longer. Pre-potting on the first one is kinda useless, you get no value at all. But as soon as you're past the first pull, if you wipe, you can start pre-potting wild magic and you will get like almost 8-9 seconds on the wild magic, so you can roll your corruption from the beginning. Don't forget that. And again, I will say it just like almost every other boss, having a good portal is still insane. Like, if you know where your tank is tanking Algalon, you can pre-put a portal in a good spot, go to another spot, and then, for example, when a Cosmic Smash spawns on you, you can just instantly portal away and keep doing your damage rotation, giving you almost no downtime, instead of having to run away on foot to your portal. Of course, you gotta be aware, maybe some other guy stood on your portal and spawned a Cosmic Smash, so you gotta always have your eyes on the portal, of course. Now, what might be the most important thing about Algalon that I myself learned actually while doing the PTR is that if you have a cast flying in the air and you go into the black hole, that cast will not register on the boss. That means, for example, if you're standing next to the black hole, you cast a haunt and you instantly go in, that haunt will never land. The boss will not get the debuff, it will not refresh your corruption, and it's just a bad time. So what you want to make sure is that when you cast your haunt, you want it to land before you go into the black hole. You want to time it good, so it refreshes your corruption, it doesn't fall off. But let's say you had to walk a long path, you cannot do it, then you might want to stutter step. Do a quick drain life to refresh the corruption on the boss so it does not drop off with your wild magic and your tricks. That would be very, very bad. But what I like to do on Algalon is that our tanks will communicate what holes will not be closed. And then every time I cast an instant spell, I will edge closer and closer to that black hole so I'm as close as possible, so I never have to like walk across the room at the last minute. That way you can maintain full debuffs, keep up the haunt debuff on the boss because you time it well before going into the black hole, and it will just make your damage really, really good. Believe that. The last trick I want to share with you on Algalon is not a DPS trick, but a trick that will greatly help your raid. The living Constellos that are walking around in a room are doing a cast. That cast can be interrupted by your Fel Hunter. So unless you're like me in this clip, using an imp to get more HP on the raid, use your Fel Hunter's silence on cooldown to interrupt these casts. It can save a raid member's life. If you get bad RNG and the Constellos cast at the same time a star explodes, almost any raid member can die from that combination. So use your interrupt on cooldown if you are using the Fel Hunter. So yeah guys, that was my tips and tricks video for Ulduar from an Affliction Warlock point of view. If you do feel like I missed something, or you feel like there's something I should cover more, please leave it in the comments, and I can make a follow-up video when I have done a couple of resets of Ulduar. Maybe I myself have found different things I can optimize when I've done it a few times on live servers. Maybe other people have told me about things I can optimize, so I can make a follow-up video in the future to this video, so we can all pump more. Again guys, if you saw any add-ons, any weak auras in my video that you would like to have yourself, join my Discord, it's all available for free. The invite link will be in the description down below. If you want to hang out or watch my gameplay live, tune into my Twitch channel called Take Note TV. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for hanging out until the end, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the future. Thank you. Have a nice day.